Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and I am extremely excited today because I have the most wonderful, amazing group of people to speak about self-love. I have Jeff Pulver, I have Rehan Alawala. Every time I say his name, I'm sure I say the last name wrong, but I think I'm getting better at it. Roshana Price, Jeannie Alford, who was with me on Tuesday and will do a recap of Tuesday for me very quickly, and Ngaf Wonder, the amazing pianist. So today, what we're doing is we're talking about self-love. And I think that's a problem. I know it's a problem for me, and I think we all have problems. Because when we think about self-love, why would we love each ourselves? We need to love others. But really, it's important for us to learn to take care of ourselves and be fair to ourselves. And I'm beginning to learn that slowly but surely. Jeannie, you know what I want you to do. Please go to it.
Well, we had a great discussion the other day concerning self-love, and we talked about a wide range of facets of self-love, from the voices inside your head that kind of tell us, the oftentimes the negative about who we are. I was thinking about that after the show, and I thought the biggest bully we have in our life is not the kid that used to chase us or terrorize us. It's the voice in our head that says, "Who do you think you are?" And we went beyond to talk about how it's not just us in our body, but we have this energy, this soul, and we need to take care of it and nurture it, and how it reflects in the world when we take care of ourselves versus when we don't. Even to the point where we were talking about how folks that we think of as jerks are teaching us a lesson because we're seeing something in them that's reflecting what we don't like in ourselves. And if we take the time to analyze and understand it, then we get to grow, we get to nurture ourselves. So it was really a wide-reaching conversation, and I would expect that today's will be the same.
I think so. So, do you want to start off, Jean, and give us your definition of self-love, and we'll go around and ask everyone, please?
Sure. I like to break things down to concepts that are easy to understand, and I think I said this earlier today. It brings to mind when Oprah started talking about putting yourself on the calendar, giving yourself appointments to take care of yourself, whether that's going to the nail salon, getting a massage, or simply giving yourself time to do meditation, whatever it is you need to be the nurturer that you are. And I always remind people there's a reason that the flight attendants tell you to put the mask on first before you put your mask on your children. Because if you're not getting oxygen, you can't help them get oxygen. Well, when we think about ourselves, we cut our oxygen off. We'll do things for everybody else around us and forget to take a moment to even take a deep breath. We get all nervous and tense and breathe shallowly, but when all we need to do sometimes is take that nanosecond to take that cleansing breath and center ourselves. So I say put yourself on the calendar.
And I don't do it, and yet I know it's so important. Let's go on to Jeff and see what he wants to say about self-love.
Well, self-love is something which we all need, although we don't appreciate it as much. Being a megalomaniac is not being self-love, but certainly it's putting yourself in front. So if you were to contrast that with actually giving yourself a chance to breathe, and to be present and understand that sometimes it's the smallest things in life that matter the most, especially to us. If you wanted to give your soul a gift, I'm still waiting for this to be a feature of on Amazon or Alexa, is to give your web browser a budget. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $100, and randomly, based on the products you look at but never buy for yourself, allow for your browser to buy you a present every once in a while, because these are the things that no one will ever else get you, but these are things clearly you want or you're curious about. So why not, engage in some self-love by letting at least an inanimate object bring love to you and your curiosity. And so, but that's really what part of this is about, doing for yourself what you would do for others, but others probably would never, ever do for you, because you're never really open enough with others to share that magic. At the same time, it's an empowerment, and it's also a chance for you to connect at an energy, vibration, and frequency that's meaningful for you. Self-love has many different characteristics, and takes on different value depending upon where you are in your life at any moment in time. Sometimes you need it the most when you least suspect it, and it's just it's a state of being as much as it is a practice. And it is very hard to love others if you do not learn to love yourself. And I'm just contrasting that against being a megalomaniac, where clearly all you care about is you. So there's a balancing act in there, and somewhere in between. And by the way, I think everybody will find their own definition. And in some ways, I look at self-love as nurturing the soul and what you need to do to be whole for yourself, and what you need to do so that you could better prepare for your moment, for your day, for your week, for your month, for your year. So we all have different needs, but it all comes from a positive source. And you're building a practice where you learn to remember to breathe, to love yourself, and to do those things that you never realized are so missing, yet when you engage in them. And so for me, a daily practice is to see a sunrise and a sunset. And when I can, I go out and I do enjoy the night sky, and I share that with others and the magics of the universe. And it's, whether it's a walk, it's a conversation, or even to tell someone else you love them. But just remember, you love yourself too. And to say, I love you, to me, not in a megalomaniac. And because there are some people who hear these words that say, oh, I take care of that. No. But, and you wonder why. Is because we don't learn necessarily in school about loving ourselves as much as caring or doing other things. So, and I learned more about self-love after an event, after an accident, after a health event than prior. But being proactive and engaging, and now I host retreats around the world, particularly in places where we have the ability to enjoy the universe and the night sky. And so, for me, self-love is all about living and breathing and being and taking the time for ourselves, because we are just as important as those that are around us, no matter what.
Thank you, Jeff. Rayhan, do you want to wait or speak now?
I will wait. I just came to learn from all these wise people.
Okay, that's what I thought. I didn't want to just skip over you. Roshana, what do you want to?
Yeah, so Jeff and Jeannie have said really good things around what it means to have self-love. What I would add is it is owning who you are, the flaws that you have, and the things that you do really well, what I like to call awesomeness. So there are things that we naturally do well, and we show up that way. And there are bullies, I like to call them awesomeness stealers, that see these gifts and talents and they make you feel bad about it. They make us feel bad about it when we need to own it. When we own the fact that we're good at a thing, and when we own the fact that we're not so good at a thing, we can then love ourselves for who we are.
Thank you. What a great response. Ingolf?
Well, this is so, I don't know if I'm as wise as these people. So it's so good to hear what they say. it's for me, I think it's to really define what's self in the first place. So how can we know what's truly us? Because we are, of course, a product of mostly the first 7 years in alpha brainwaves, and everything we have ever experienced and ever learned is making us in a way. But what is just accumulated knowledge, and what is truly yourself? Who is the voice in your head talking to? This is what I'm really interested in, because I think if somebody the self-love that I heard descriptions of now, really a lot depends on your upbringing, on the luck or not luck you had of the parents that took care of you, that gave you whatever you needed or not. And after these years, after these first 7 years especially, or maybe after adolescence, you have to take care of yourself. You realize what your flaws are, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And totally right, Rushana, that usually people make us feel bad for what we're good at. That's out of their self-defense. So I think I know I'm not making a clear point here, but I think important is to have the discussion about what's really ourselves. Because what I'm personally very much after is, like everybody, of course, what's consciousness? Where is consciousness? Is it in us? Is it around us? Is it in the universe and we are just antennas? All these questions. So I hope to hear more input towards these questions today.
Ingaf, I think you bring up a really important point, and I'm going to add something to it. When you're talking about self-love, what is the self? Is it the thoughts in our head? Or is it the consciousness that lays beyond the thoughts? I generally don't know. But the one thing that I do know, and I'd like to know what everyone thinks, is I know I will tell myself things that are not the greatest for me. And I will put myself down. And when I'm doing that, what it does is it keeps me from recognizing who I really am or what I can do. Like, I may say at times, hey, I'm not good enough for the people who are on this panel. It's an amazing panel. But in some way, I attracted myself to these guys. All these people came to me. I need to take that negativity out of my thinking pattern. And whoever wants to respond to that can, because I'm not sure where to go on that. But I think that's part of what self-love is beginning to realize that when you say something negative about yourself and you're kind to everyone else, you're not really being kind to ourselves. We need to begin to be kind to me. I need to begin to be kind to me, and we all need to begin to be kind to ourselves. So whoever wants to talk, for some reason, Roshana is coming to me. So go ahead, Roshana.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, it's all about first how you talk to yourself and what is self. So it's everything that embodies you. It's even the experiences, it's the voices. I like to say, like, the one for me, it's my right side that comes behind my ear, that it's the same one that says, who do you think you are? And on the other side, it's like, oh my God, you're awesome. Both of them can exist in the same part of who we are. That's why the self-love comes in acknowledging they both exist. I think the one thing that I've experienced personally, that I've coached people through, is pretending that one doesn't exist, one or the other. The negative voice doesn't exist or the positive voice. When we pretend, we then lie to ourselves and our trust in ourselves is eroded, which then leads to the self-loathing that's on the other side. We're here to talk about self-love, and we have to talk about the loathing or the lack of trust we have in ourselves as well. We know we love ourselves because of the times when we haven't. It's how you know light. It's because you've been in darkness, or if you're in darkness and then there's a glimpse of light, you know it exists. So it's both. For me personally, I think I'm pretty awesome. Am I great at everything? Absolutely not. Do I want to be? For sure, no. But the things that I'm good at, I'm really good at them. And the more that I say that to others, the more then I give them permission to say that about themselves.
Roshana, when did you decide you were awesome? Did you decide it when you were a little girl, or did it come with time?
So it's been an ebb and a flow of choosing and deciding to live in it. So I was bullied as a child. So for a long time, I didn't think I was awesome. And then I was like, forget that. Those bullies, they're dumb, excuse my language, but you know, when you're young, that's the language. They're dumb, they're stupid. And so then it was, I'm awesome. I'm going to be a track star. I'm going to be in the band. I'm going to go be an engineer. And I did all of that. And through that, I've had different people come and say, you aren't so awesome. And sometimes I wasn't. Okay, well, I'm not good at that. I'll put that down. I'm going to go find something else. It's a choice. I believe it's a choice that you can make daily in every moment to see yourself and to love yourself right where you are. And when you put that out there in any moment, you give people, like I've said before, that permission to do the same.
I love it, and I hope I can begin doing that.
Yes, you can.
Can I say something with something triggered here? Because when I, in my masterclasses, help pianists over stage fright, then it's something really interesting that chemically the brain doesn't know the difference between fear and excitement. It's the same thing. So I was wondering if that has something to do with this too. I think it's about the personal reality. We all live in the personal reality that we make up ourselves as we go and with the sensory input that we get. So it means, in a way, and I mean that positively, everything is a lie. And this is good because then you can decide how you're lying to yourself.
Yes. If I may, really quickly, when I don't coach musicians in that way, but others that are doing speaking, I tell them fear is excitement without a destination. You're here because you need it to have a destination. Let's pick that. And let's focus that energy into what it needs to be. So Ingrid, to all your folks that you're doing, you can use that too.
Well, I think that Roshana makes a really great point in the recognizing both sides, the positive and the negative. And I wanted to make 2 points, and they both kind of go around art. Whatever you think of as art. Some people think it's drawing. Some people say it's being a musician. Others think it's just being able to stand up and talk. But we each have a dark side and a light side, and we have it in those voices in our heads, which is why I often refer to that as the committee. And if you ever sat through a committee, you know that a lot of people talk and talk and talk and talk until the leader comes in and says, all right, let's get to the agenda. And the self of who we are in golf is that person, that voice that says, let's get to it, that becomes the leader. But as Roshana said, you kind of have to give yourself permission to do that, because we've been taught over the decades of our lives to be humble and to be quiet, because, you know, children are supposed to be seen and not heard. Most of us may not have heard that directly, but we've felt it. But my point is that once you can own both sides, the dark and the light, then you become three-dimensional. So if you've ever drawn a circle on a page, it's just a circle. But if you know how to shade it, how to add the darkness in, it becomes a 3D sphere. And that's a really important concept to keep in your mind. You need to know that what the darkness is there, but you need to know it has a purpose. And that purpose is to round us out. So if you can take a look at those voices that say, who do you think you are? Or what makes you think you can do that? I did some deep thought contemplation work a while back, and I ended up naming that voice Dad, because my dad used to question me and push me all the time. And, I love him dearly, and God rest your soul, but periodically I'll say, shut up, Dad, I got this, which is what children are supposed to do. There's that friction between parents and children, because parents lay down boundaries and children push it and push it and push it until you find a boundary that's good for both of you. It's called teenagehood usually, but we're all teenagers in our own mind. And the other point I wanted to make that also brings in art goes to what Ingolf was saying, is where is self? And if you find that thing that you really love to do, that you don't have to think about, that you just, where time goes away and it becomes flow. And for me, that's often when I'm painting. I'm not a great painter, but the act of painting calms my mind, balances right and left. Time no longer exists, and you're just doing that one activity. That's the flow. And when you can get into the flow, you can recognize your true self. And in the midst of all of us wanting to put words to it, I always say that's the part of us that is just pure love. Just pure love. Our self, our reason for being here is to love each other and to love ourselves. It's the golden rule. But when you can find the flow and give yourself permission to be in the flow and not feel guilty, not think, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this. If you're a parent, you know that that's about 18,000 things you need to do for your child. If you're a friend, there's about, maybe 2,000 you need to do for all your friends. There's always a list. But you give yourself permission for just a moment to be in the flow and to be pure love. That helps balance out your brain and helps you understand who you are. It's amazing. So I actually long for those moments where I give myself time, and I usually put on a movie that I know so well that I don't even have to watch it, but it's there to kind of keep me with the rhythm. And then I start putting color on the screen, and the next thing you know, it's 3 a.m, but I'm not tired. It's an amazing feeling when you can give yourself that moment in time to just be. It's cliche, I know, but many ministers have stood up on pulpits and said, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And when we just allow ourselves to be, it's amazing. And that is pure self-love.
Ingolf, you look like you're thinking, but while you're thinking, I'm going to throw something out. We all breathe every day, and we breathe in and out. And if we're not breathing, we're not here. We're dead. So could our breath be that consciousness that is the basis of our thinking? And how can our thinking be changed to a more positive way of thinking when we don't see ourselves with self-love? Someone pick it up, please.
So, may I, Carla? All right. So, first of all, Roshana, that's amazing. Your energy is phenomenal. Please give me some of your awesomeness, just like you're the giver of awesomeness. So, and thank you, Jean, for those lovely words. And I would love to hear from you on how do we find our flow. If what is it that brings us to the flow? What was Jeff's flow? What was Roshana's flow, which brought her into the awesomeness she is? And I want to share a small little poem, which was it's not even a poem, just one sentence of a poem, which was done by the founder of my country, Pakistan. And it says, I'll say it in Urdu and then I will try to translate it. I consider the word which he uses here as self-love and self-belief, or a combination of it. And it's very commonly said, but all the people who try to translate this poem say it's very complicated. You can't really translate it. But then if you can't really understand something, just like Ingolf was saying, how can you actually do anything about it? So I like to break it down. Anyways, the poem is, खुदी को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे, बता तेरी रज़ा क्या है. And it will translate it into khudi kokar. Khudi is the word which I translate as self-love and self-belief. Make yourself believe so high so that before God writes your destiny, he asks you, what would you like? So basically, if you actually believe in yourself enough, then the destiny becomes whatever you want it to become. Otherwise, you can constantly cry that, oh, I've been, thrown here and there by destiny. So that's something which I wanted to share. I would love some tricks and tips from geniuses here. What can we do on like, should we stick some posters on our wall? Hey, I love you, Rihan, or something like that. And because this is a disease, I would call, which the entire world is in, not just well, in my country, I would say it's even more, because it's looked as frowned upon something. If you talk about yourself, you're instantly labeled as narcissist. But otherwise you cannot. It's very hard to, because it's never talked about. So it's mixed between self-love and self-praising, as somebody else also wrote. So if you're doing self-love, people think that you're praising yourself, and then they throw you down even more. So some tips and tricks would be great. And all my friends in the US, I feel like they love themselves, or they're so confident, and they're like Roshana, like, I know everything what I'm doing. Even though, I mean, here people are like, no, I really don't know what I'm doing. I mean, they're more humbler here. We're taught to be, I would say, even 1 degree or 10 degrees lower than humble, whatever the word is. So I'm out.
So it's interesting that you use the word humble, because I was brought up very humble, and I actually would consider myself a very humble person. And my humility is in the fact that I also say that I exist. We have to have both. If we're so humble that there's no vibration, then what is something attracted to then? Or my father is 72. Happy birthday, Dad, if you're listening. He just turned 72, and we had to go through a process with him to understand that, yes, you can be so humble. And if you're so humble that you never ask for what you want, or you never take up any space in the world, then how are you able to live into your purpose? And the people that are meant to be attracted to you, that you're supposed to be called to serve in some way through a business, a book, an organization, whatever it is, your music, your artistry. If you're so meek and mild in it and humble in it, it won't get out there, because there is so much darkness, heaviness that will overtake it. So you have to shine enough. So I use this analogy when it comes to what I call awesomeness. The sun. The sun shines in the sky, and ultimately, as the sun is shining, it will throw shade. It does both. If the sun is shining and there is an object that exists, there is shade. And so you want to be the object that exists. And the sun, when it gets scrutinized for saying, you're just hot, you're burning me up, the sun doesn't go, well, tomorrow I'll be the moon because everybody's complaining. The sun still shows up. It still shows up to shine bright. And then the people that don't like it go inside to AC, or the people that love it step into it, or the people that are like, yes, and I'm getting I got some shade over here. They embrace the process. And so that's what I would offer as a tip, is first embracing the process of knowing that you have to be willing to shine in order to then get the scrutiny. And when you're getting the scrutiny, so when people are saying to you, look at you, you're on this show, look at you, you're doing this thing, listen carefully to what they're saying. Because people will tell you who you are and the greatness that you have, the awesomeness inside of you. They may package it really nasty, but it's still there. So if someone says to you, look at you, you're doing this thing, who do you think you are? The fact that they are looking at you means you have something. You have a thing for them to scrutinize. That thing is what you need to take to better places, spaces, do more of it, because the fact that they can talk about it means you have something. So those are 2 tips and places to start.
Jeannie, you look like you want to say something.
I didn't hear what you said, Carla. What was that?
It looked like you wanted to say something, so I went to you. And
Well, I really appreciate, Rehan, you're expressing the difference, let's say, between the culture in the U.S. and the culture where you're at, because that's one of the things I think we all need to understand, is that everybody has different cultures. That makes us who we are. That makes a difference. I don't think that I could probably flourish in Japan, where I was born. My dad was in the military, and I happened to have been born in a little town outside of Tokyo. However, as I worked in Tokyo and I learned some of the culture, I realized that I broke the norms, because I was raised in America, and I've experienced what we used to hear in TV and in movies, the ugly American, and I think that the basis, the difference here is that there's a balance between confidence and being humble. Being humble is not always having humility. It's actually being a little bit less effusive and allowing others to have part of the stage and to shine. I grew up being told to be humble. And as I said earlier, children are to be seen and not heard. I was the middle of 7, so there was a lot of being not heard in my family. However, as I've learned my own voice, as Roshana has shared in her story, as I've learned my own voice, I've learned it's more about confidence in who you are and what you can do and how you show up in the world. Now, if I went traveling around the world, I know that I need to step back a little and learn, because I'm not the middle of the world. My son has heard this many times. I've said, son, the earth travels around the sun. It does not travel around you. I want to make sure that he knows, and he does, he's turned into a nice young man, that there are other people and we need to have space for them. We need to share as much love with our neighbors as we do with ourselves. That's why the golden rule is, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. If everybody did that, we would listen. We would actually take time to fully listen to everybody and to acknowledge that they have something to give in the world. We wouldn't be trying to pull each other down, because it's not a competition. However, in the United States, I think we're brought up in a sense of a competition. Even as in our early school years, somebody's going to be the better reader. Somebody's going to be better at math. Somebody's going to be better in the dodgeball field. And believe me, it wasn't me. However, as I found what I'm good at, then I became more confident, and I had to practice that. I can stand in a room filled with CEOs and tell them how to talk. But in my early years, I would have faded into the wall because nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And that was a core belief. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say is something I heard before I was old enough to know the difference between that's what you said, that's not what I said. And that's some of the undoing that we have to do. I think it was Ingolf was asking, who is self? Well, I firmly believe that we have a lot of stories that make up who we are, that are core beliefs, that guide how we make decisions. But they come from stories that others told us. Stories that your mother said. You were really independent as a child, and you didn't really want me to snuggle you. I don't remember that, but maybe that was your experience of me. Or maybe it was me because I was the 4th out of 7 and you didn't have time. But that's okay. Once you figure those kinds of things out, you can peel away the hurt and the emotion that we hold on to, then you can let yourself shine. That hurt and emotion and perceived failure that we had growing up. I mean, if you had Sister Anne Marie flip you on the hand and tell you you're holding the pen too tight, you're afraid to hold the pen too tight, and you bring that up throughout other types of experiences. I got to make sure that this woman loves me. If your mother said something really cruel when you were 5 years old, but she was reacting out of something really crazy, and had nothing to do with you, but you heard it. You were injured. You were holding on to that emotion. So when you start to find those things that hold you back, and that's why I say listen to the voices, because they show up in those, in the committee inside your head. You get to learn things and then undo them or process them. The emotions are there until you process them. You have to say, I realize I was hurt when, and then let it go. I realized that I really expected something great and I was disappointed because, we have all of these things that make up the 3D image of who we are. But if we become the writer in our own life, we get to edit those. We get to think about them and say, okay, Mom said that when I was 5, but she was dealing with 3 little babies that were sick. The washer broke, and I come home as my exuberant self, and she just tamped me down. All right, that's different than holding on to the hurt of what she said. So when we look at it with our adult eyes, we can reclassify them in our memory and process it. All of these things make up who we are. We're just a bunch of stories. Literally, we are a spark of light that came to the earth, that Marianne Williamson says, who are you not to let it shine? But we have all these layers that mask it from shining. And when we pull those layers off, and that takes some deep contemplation or meditation or whatever tools that you use to allow it to just unfold and peel away. So I know I made a huge change in my life when I learned how to breathe, when I learned how to take a moment and take 3 deep breaths and just relax. Now, it was taught to me as a part of stress management and not explained in this way. But after doing the exercise, the person who told me to do it had told me every time you're at a stop sign or a stoplight when you're driving, take 3 deep breaths, slow, deep breaths all the way into your abdomen. And I'll be darned, it took about 3 weeks and my attitude at driving changed completely. No longer was I driving with white knuckles and screaming and yelling words that you can't say over broadcast. I was saying things like, oh, there's somebody that needs to go get somewhere 10 seconds faster than me. Okay, we'll let you go ahead. Or actually, if you see, something, I actually would say, let's call on the angels to unpack this craziness here so that I can get where I need to go. But I started looking at the world differently simply by learning how to do some deep breathing. And then that led to contemplation and meditation. And then that led to self-awareness and self-discovery. So it's a process. It's a process that we all need to practice, to do fairly regularly. It may not be a daily practice because you may not have time for it daily. But I figured out in my last corporate job, I figured out how to escape for 5 minutes and do some deep breathing, a little bit of Tai Chi so nobody saw me, and a little bit of meditation to let go of the frustrations that we all have at work. And then to come back and do what I had to do. And I managed crisis communications at that job. So when I was getting worked up, it was usually because I had to deal with a crisis. And I found that being able to balance myself made me a better director of that program. I use it in my daily life. When my son gets to me, I take a deep breath and I ask him a question, and I really work to listen to find out what's going on. So those are just a couple of things.
I just want to make sure we get to someone else. What you're saying is really wonderful, but Jeff and Ingolf and Rayhan haven't had much time either. So finish. I hate to.
Oh, no, it was just a couple of tips I wanted to share.
They're great tips. Thank you so very much. Do you have anything else? Because I didn't want to interrupt you either.
No, I'd like to hear from Jeff and Ingolf and Rayhan.
Thank you. Jeff?
Sure. So I'll start from the beginning and just state that consciousness is a chemical in our mind, and consciousness is always a chemical, no matter what. Sometimes it's altered, and certain beings have consciousness, other beings don't, and how we perceive is a function of the chemicals and the balance, and that provides perspective. You started the programming by talking about self-love, and my answer to that is, after listening to your question, is really, do you have a practice for manifestations? Because if you go through the steps to manifest something, what you will learn is to let go of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Let go of expectations. Learn to be open. Learn to receive. And when you go through these steps, you open yourself up, and self-love comes from it. And in fact, if you want to manifest just self-love, so be it. But you can also, do quantum manifestations and change the world, or at least your consciousness in it, and how you see the world, and how you connect the dots. Because as we all contain our past, our present, and our future, and we are also our own universe, how our galaxies interconnect shifts based on our balances, based on our vibrations, our energies, and the frequencies that we choose to connect with. Because a lot of us communicate not with words, but with presence. We communicate by what we don't do sometimes more than what we do. It's sometimes the actions not taken. And so when you talk about self-love, I look at that as a part of the journey toward being connected with the universe at a level that you directly communicate with Source, in which case you're then maybe a conduit. Perhaps you are Source. Different perspective. When it comes to who you are you? Really, who are you? Are you not a collective of past experiences, and those to be experienced, and those that are being experienced all at the same time? Right? So who are you, and where are you? Where you've ever been? The DNA that you represent has all the history of the future, all the pain, and all the pleasure. That's what you have. There's a scientific evidence that will show that when you experience trauma in past generations, it's actually passed through genetically. It is there. But so is the pleasure, right? So this does not have to be pain-based. But you, and I am someone who believes that while there are people of this planet, which I'll characterize as planetary, some of you have a container that represents energy from light, from universes millions and millions of light years away. But you have to be present here and in a form that we can communicate with. And so in terms of how we express and how we connect chemically, energetically, by presence, by having a consciousness that we are aware of, and by allowing ourselves to let go of the no. In a very simple terms, if you have people in your lives who drain you energetically, I call them energy vampires. You will allow your own words for them. But these are people that take advantage of who you are, and you allow it. So just say no. Learn to say no as much as learn to say yes. Learn to accept who you are and the powers and superpowers that carry with you. Do not worry about your success and do not feel guilty of it. And speak your truth and be your truth. And the closer you are to your truth, the closer you are connecting your soul to your soul. And if you want to have heartfelt conversations and allow yourself to flow into the consciousness of the universe, so be it. And comes with that, it will be the self-love, because you will be absolutely aware you need time to breathe, to be who you are and who you're meant to be. Because again, you carry your past, your present, and your future all together as one in different stages of how you are. Some of us, get younger as you age. Some people age at different frequencies. Some people who were very old at a very young appearance. Some people reverse. It's all relative. You may find friends of yours are aging at a different rate than you. Maybe they're from a different world for real. Because consciousness is just that, a chemical. It's how we perceive, how we allow ourselves to perceive the world, or whoever is allowing you to see and breathe and be. And while you do have freedom of the mind, you have also the freedom to do what is best for you at any moment in time. And understand that we are made of cosmic dust. And that there's more to this world than the six of us here. That we are but billions on this planet, but billions and billions and billions and quadrillions others out there too. And if you want to get to quantum manifestations, we have to learn to connect to all, not just some. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. I think I was talking while my mic was still muted. Someone did ask, how do you say no? We'll get to that on another show, because you're actually bringing up the points of stress and anxiety, and maybe we'll talk about that next week. But for this week, let's stay on self-love. And Inga, would you like to say something? Because we are coming to the end, believe it or not.
Well, I'm processing. It's thank you, Jeannie, thank you, Jeff, and all of you, Shana and Rehan as well, for this great poem. It's like I have to add to this that when Rehan, you said that in your country it's like confidence is put down and so on average. And then this triggered that I've so far visited about 50 countries, I think, and in all the countries that I've spoken to people, I've heard that in my country, if you think you're awesome, you're not liked, and generally society wants to drag you down and so on. So almost every country I've visited says that about the own country. So I think it's a general problem. And this is great tips about the balancing of the positive, negative. This is very, very important, because if you're living on stage like I do, then you learn this and you see pretty quickly that negative energies are maybe a bit more addicting than positive energies. So you have to fight more with yourself in order to let the positive chemical win, so to speak. But I had so many thoughts when you guys were talking, and I didn't write them down, so they will come back at some point. But then when Jeff talked about the whole different perspective of things, then it's like well, I mean, if you think about it I recently heard an interview, and I was thinking there was somebody talking about meaning in life, and what are we actually, why are we existing, and so on and so on. So if you zoom out big enough, of course, it's very tempting to say that whatever we do is meaningless, because the planet will, the universe, at some point the sun will stop shining, and the whole universe is so much bigger than we are. So whatever we can possibly do on Earth doesn't make a difference. But then, of course, there are these other realities, and the personal realities, and all the other frequencies, if you will, where you do make a difference, where all of that what we live through matters. And I think you guys have said so much. I think if somebody really listens and really takes these tips, there's a lot in there. You need to have the balance between humility and, as you said, and awesomeness, but you need to be free to express the awesomeness. And I think this countries, or generally education systems, since they are flawed anyway, and they will be disrupted big time the next decades, will hopefully take care of that people learn more about themselves and about self-love.
Thank you, Ingolf. And I picked up on your comment about in my country. I hear it all the time, education in my country, and I go, it's not just your country, it's everyone. And we think, oh, because I'm in, please, Rayhan, don't take this personally, because I'm in Pakistan, I expect this, or I'm in the United States and this is happening here. It's happening throughout the world. And I think when we begin to realize that we are a global community,
I think internet.
I think CIA was listening to her.
Yeah, I think she's frozen.
There she is.
Oh, I froze. Okay. Rayhan, do you want to say something?
No, I just want to thank you for doing all the wonderful stuff you do every single day, for connecting with people, jogging our mind in the MindPlore, and teaching English to people, and being able to bear me every single day. That's a lot of work on its own. So thank you so much for being who you are. I appreciate you, and I respect you, and thank you for adding flavor to the planet, and thank you for educating every one of us.
Now, can we talk about self-love a little? Your opinion or your thinking, what
You should
you have
have
learned?
self-love so you can accept all this stuff. You should be able to accept so that you can raise the level of your self-love.
I get the point. We'll leave it at that. We are coming to the end. Does anyone want to add just a few words to end up the show? And
I'd like to underscore that everything that we've talked about are things that anybody can do. And as Roshana said so eloquently earlier, we make the choice. And there's the stimulus that gets us thinking, and then there's how we respond. 9 times out of 10, we respond emotionally and we just react. I'd like to challenge the listeners to take a deep breath when that stimulus comes up, when they start to think about something. Take a deep breath and allow yourself to respond deliberately and make a choice to change your life if you need it, or to accept your life and who you are. So we get to decide that for ourselves. That's how we co-create our life. But to take that second, to take a deep breath and make a choice deliberately, that would be awesome.
Roshana, do you want to say something?
It's been a pleasure to be here. I've learned a lot. I'm glad that we've had this conversation. And I would echo, take a minute and pause. And for those that need help or assistance, or they're wondering even more, how do I do that? I want to get better at it. We're all on social media here. We have these platforms. So I would say reach out, because sometimes you can do it by yourself. Sometimes you need help. And so it's okay to say, I want to get better, and to reach out to those that can help. So contact us. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's here. I can add. It's always. I know it's such a cliche in the books, but it's really, you are a product of the people you surround yourself with, and sometimes you just need to reach out to the right people, and the right people will change your lives. Maybe the right energies, if you will, and so yeah, enjoy life.
Jeff, a word or two?
Remember to breathe. Don't ever feel guilty about giving yourself the love that you need, and share it as openly as you want to. And just be yourself, and remember, your voice matters, your energy matters, you matter. And no matter what, breathe, take the moments, and take that time and be.
Rayhan, any other words? I want to thank all of you for an amazing and wonderful conversation. Rayhan, for reminding me that I need to learn to love myself. Jeff, for reminding me that I need to breathe. Something that I teach, and yet I don't always remember. Roshana, for reminding me to be awesome, or to believe that I'm awesome. Ingolf, for showing me that consciousness is where it all begins, and we need, by being aware of consciousness, we're going to grow tons. And Jean, you brought up something important. I forget the exact words. Oh, I remember them now. Put yourself on the calendar, not only everyone else. It has been a marvelous, marvelous show. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank all of the listeners. The English show is coming up in about 30 minutes, and you can come and talk there. A lot of you are making many comments. And we will be back next week on Tuesday with MindPlore. And I have some ideas of topics right now that I didn't think of before. So can we wave goodbye, folks? And we're going to go now. And again, thank you so very, very much.